Welcome to our latest explainer. I'm so glad you're joining us today. We're going to unpack a truly visionary blueprint that offers a radical, forward-looking solution for local governments and self-organizing communities. We're talking about creating absolute economic and physical stability from the ground up. We'll walk through exactly how we can move away from our current vulnerabilities and step into a system of localized self-sufficiency and genuine abundance.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We'll be moving logically through 5 key areas. First, the age of vulnerability. Second, the concept of a biological gold standard. Then, the engine of local self-sufficiency, followed by creating an inflation-free local economy, and finally, how all this builds a next-generation municipal center.
Part 1. The age of vulnerability, or the illusion of global stability. You know, it's actually pretty wild to think about the ultimate paradox of the 21st century. We are literally at the absolute peak of technological knowledge, right? Yet, securing our most basic human needs, like clean water or everyday food, still causes constant underlying anxiety in our society. As you can see, our current global supply chains and systems of institutionalized dependence have created a massive level of vulnerability for the individual. I mean, think about it. Just one major power grid failure, a sudden climate shock, or a massive economic hiccup, and boom, the grocery store shelves are empty. We have to contrast this incredibly fragile artificial system with the one absolute, undeniable constant of human reality: hunger. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive paradigm shift we're looking at. On the left, we've got traditional currencies, fiat money, and even standard crypto. These are backed by debt, speculation, central bank promises, or complex algorithms. But on the right, this is a total game changer. We're talking about food-backed digital vouchers backed by actual, physically existing preserved calories and constant biological demand. We're literally moving from market speculation to tangible reality. Which brings us to part 2, the biological gold standard. This is all about redefining money through physical reality and permanently fixing the artificial gap between finance and biology. So what exactly is a biological gold standard? It's a system where a digital currency's intrinsic value comes directly from physically stored, consumable food energy. And let me be super clear here. This isn't some empty future promise, and it's definitely not a market bubble. When a local community grows and freeze-dries its own vegetables, that food is physically sitting right there in the local reserve. The system issues a digital voucher against it. This makes the token the ultimate universal medium of exchange, backed by actual harvested calories. But you might be wondering, how do we measure this objectively? I mean, we can't exactly value a pound of lettuce the exact same way as a pound of potatoes, right? Well, that's where the brilliance of calorie-based accounting comes in. The number 2,000 represents the daily caloric need of an average adult. This becomes the flawless common denominator, acting as the standard unit of value for one digital voucher. It perfectly converts crops with wildly different nutritional values into one unified digital measure. Let's read this quote together, because the logic here is absolutely ironclad. The value of the token does not depend on speculation, but on the fact that humans always need food. Let that sink in for a second. This is the value of hunger. As long as there are people on Earth, the purchasing power of this value ticket is mathematically and biologically incapable of ever dropping to zero. All right, part 3, the engine of local self-sufficiency. Now that we understand the core concept, let's shift our focus to the physical infrastructure that actually makes this kind of autonomy possible. We are looking at a massive technological leap here. In the past, traditional farming was incredibly vulnerable, totally at the mercy of droughts, pests, you name it. But present-day, high-tech, controlled environment agriculture, it's a completely different ballgame. We're talking 10 times more food produced, using 90% less water. And the best part, it produces the exact same yield in January as it does in July. It makes the local community completely immune to external climate crises. And the future? Tokenizing those preserved reserves for absolute, year-round food security. And this brilliantly illustrates the genius of how the system manages the yield. A local government or community can distribute the harvest without wasting a single leaf. Roughly 30% of the fresh crop can go directly to locals as a free daily portion, creating a dignified social safety net. Another 30% goes to market sales to cover operational costs like electricity and wages. But the real magic is the remaining 40%. That excess doesn't rot away, it gets preserved and enters the community's economic loop as a tokenized, crisis-proof reserve. Moving on to part 4, the inflation-free local economy. Let's look at the flawless logic of this economic loop and exactly how it permanently protects local capital. Let's walk through the life cycle of this local digital voucher step by step. Step 1, grow and preserve the excess food. Step 2, mint the digital voucher. And listen, this token isn't mined by some random algorithm. It's only minted, like a digital receipt, when the actual food is preserved and put on the shelf. Step 3, the voucher circulates locally. But step 4 is absolutely crucial. When someone redeems that voucher for food and eats it, the token is permanently burned, destroyed from the system. Because of this, there can literally never be more tokens in circulation than there is physical food in the vault. Inflation becomes mathematically impossible.
Because these digital value tickets are backed by the ultimate guarantee, the promise of food, they become a completely independent medium of exchange for the town. You could trade your vouchers for a haircut or to pay the local electrician. So what does this actually mean? It means the capital stays trapped within the community. Global supply chains and massive multinational corporations can't extract the local wealth anymore. It is the absolute ultimate shield for localized economic independence.
Let's move to our final section, part 5, and see how this builds a next-generation municipal center. We're looking at an ecosystem that goes way, way beyond just food. Think about the incredible, cascading social benefits here for a local government. The true product of this high-tech community greenhouse isn't just tomatoes. It's a stronger, self-organizing community. It acts as an interactive STEM lab for schools where kids learn biology and economics by actually running the system. It functions as a preventative health center, drastically reducing local rates of obesity and diabetes through fresh, nutrient-dense food. It bridges the generational gap, allowing retired agricultural experts to mentor tech-savvy youth. And it provides a dignified social safety net, completely removing the stigma of traditional handouts. When you compare these two models, it is crystal clear why mayors and local leaders need to see this not as a farming cost, but as the ultimate infrastructural investment. A traditional town is totally dependent on imports, incredibly vulnerable to power grid failures, and constantly battling rising social costs. A new generation town, however, has its own strategic food and water reserves, self-sustaining energy, and naturally builds a highly resilient smart city brand. Which brings us to the deeper philosophy behind this entire blueprint, the transition from a scarcity-based economy to an abundance-based society. For centuries, our societies have been completely driven by scarcity. But imagine what happens when a community no longer fears starvation. When the daily anxiety of survival is completely removed, something magical happens. Human creativity is finally set free. People can redirect all that energy into art, education, innovation, and truly actualizing their full potential. This isn't some sci-fi dream. It's a scalable blueprint that we literally hold in our hands today. The technology is here, and the economic logic is absolutely bulletproof. So the only question left is this: is your community ready for the age of abundance? I really hope this explainer has inspired you and given you a fresh perspective on how we can build genuine, lasting local stability. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you next time.